Since the last video, there seems to thankfully be a little bit of a lull in the action in regards to what is not just the Middle East, but also what I think is going to be the other front line here in the US. And with that, what we're going to get into in this video is that we can't just sit around and breathe a sigh of relief, because yes, Operation Midnight Hammer, that was a success, but it's due to this success that we are in a heightened threat environment here in the US, and I would imagine probably Canada and Europe as well. So let's get into it. Okay, so to kick this off, I said in the last two videos the importance of having a national news network notification app on your phone. And the more I thought about it, it could go beyond your phone as well, and could also be really a network of trusted sources that you have, varying means to keep in contact with them, i.e. some sort of encrypted messaging app or even HF radio. You heard me mention those other two YouTube channels that I said I like. It was the Partisan Comms Group and the Terminal Element. And this is the exact type of thing we have set up and I actually do with those guys. But back to those phone apps, another really good one I forgot to mention was that you should also be signed up from the National Terrorism Advisory System, which is a program through DHS, and it will notify you via email. Just in case you weren't familiar, this is the latest system that was created, because after 9/11, it came up with a color chart to report the terrorist threat level. But that, again, was a few months after 9/11 happened. So some time went on, and then in 2011, they just refined it again to what we now have, which is this NTAS. So what are we getting into here? There are sleeper cells in this country, whether you want to admit it or at least acknowledge it or not. They are. And here, don't just take my word for it. Check this out.
After President Trump left the G7 summit in Canada a day early last week, it was learned he had received a message from Iran that if the U.S. attacked Iran's nuclear facilities, the regime could activate sleeper cells to launch terror attacks in the United States. The FBI says assets are fully engaged to prevent an attack, and Homeland Security is warning of a heightened threat environment, but saying little else.
What information do we know right now in regards to those sleeper cells? How is DHS tracking and following and seeking information in regards to
I can't necessarily share that with you, but I will tell you that we are continuing to evaluate every single threat and to proactively go after them before they do anything or take any activity.
And none of this is purely speculation. This is confirmed. They are here, and it is proven. We've caught and arrested some of them, and by them, we are talking about Iranian nationals. One caught with a gun, which means they have a pipeline to secure weapons, most likely illegally, and a trained Iranian military sniper.
This week, federal immigration agents have arrested 11 Iranians here illegally. One arrested in Alabama was an Iranian army sniper. Another in Houston was carrying a loaded pistol. Counterterrorism expert Barak Siner in London says Iran, defeated on the battlefield, may see a sleeper cell attack as the only way it can hurt the United States.
And how did they get here? Well, probably through the southern border, because under the Biden administration, it's estimated that 10 million people came across, and at least 160 people were on the freaking terror watch list that were caught by CBP.
Iran took full advantage of the Biden administration's open border policies, in which millions of illegal migrants entered the U.S.
Hundreds, if not thousands, of Iranian nationals passed through the doors of the United States.
CBN's Chuck Holton has reported from Panama's Darien Gap, where migrants must cross on their way to the United States. And he says he encountered many Iranian men.
Every Iranian that I met in the Darien Gap was a military-age male, and I didn't meet any Iranian women at all. They mostly spoke English, so they were well-educated, and none of them were with their families.
And we know it wasn't just Iranian nationals on the terrorist watch list getting through. It was also Chinese nationals. I mean, look at these guys. They are military-aged males. Where are all the women coming across with them seeking asylum as well from China, since it's such a oppressive place? I mean, come on, people. My goodness. Look, they are standing at freaking parade rest. And we know China is aligning with Iran on all of these current events. But focusing back on the Iranians specifically, these guys are probably a part of what I think is one of the biggest threat groups. And I'm talking about these individuals may have been part of this thing called Unit 910. And if you aren't familiar with what Unit 910 is, let me just explain this real quick. So Iran is one of the largest state sponsors of terror in the world. But Hezbollah, which is considered one of the most powerful non-state armed groups in the world, is based in Lebanon and actually holds seats in the Lebanese parliament, not Iran. But its ideological ideas, some of their training, their weapons and financial backing, which is estimated to be 700 million to 1 billion annually, comes heavily from Iran. So while Hezbollah operates independently within Lebanon, they run social programs, they hold political power, and they maintain its own armed wing. Its regional role and strategic priorities are deeply entwined with that of Iran's influence and their goals, which are, of course, quite simply, death to America and death to Israel.
Thousands remain defiant, shouting death to Israel and death to America.
We don't approve of the ceasefire at all. We will continue fighting until we are either martyred or win. God willing, Iran will eventually own a nuclear bomb.
So Unit 910, I know I'm going all over the place here trying to keep my thoughts straight, but my driving force to become a New York City firefighter was 9/11. And then during that time, and even now in my law enforcement career, I have a huge passion for anything related to terrorism or counterterrorism, which with all of these current events is directly tied to preparedness. So Hezbollah's Unit 910, also known as the External Security Organization or the Islamic Jihad Organization, this is their elite clandestine unit responsible for covert operations outside of Lebanon. And that includes intelligence gathering, sleeper cell activation, and terrorist attacks focused on Israeli and Western interests. And these guys are absolute experts in espionage, surveillance, explosives, and covert communications, often using dual citizenship and civilian cover. The best thing that those guys can do is get naturalized as US citizens so that they can get a passport and move back and forth without a whole lot of questioning. What will they do with this is basically create a target list on the areas in which they live and then collect the capability to execute an attack on those targets. And by that, it could be by collecting firearms, ammunition, bomb-making material, finding the hardware stores which sell the kind of precursor chemicals for explosives, mapping out targets, locating safe houses. And while doing this, they are in constant communication with Beirut, with the Hezbollah leaders. And you guys got to realize, none of this is speculation. This is all confirmed because we have federally prosecuted Unit 910 operatives. Dearborn, Michigan, and Brooklyn, New York being notable cases because that was really how we received our intelligence roadmap to how Unit 910 was operating in the US. And they actually published their target list. We know they were looking to target dual Israeli US citizens, federal agents, federal offices, FBI offices, National Guard armories, prominent businessmen, Jewish businessmen and women, Jewish businesses, as well as Jewish places of worship. And this wide variety of targets is probably due to allow Hezbollah leaders to pick the type of message that they want to get across at any particular time. We also had, just in 2023, the Iraqi asylum seeker in Ohio who was arrested for plotting to bring 4 al-Qaeda terrorists over the southern border to assassinate George W. Bush in Texas. You didn't really hear about that one, did you? Funny enough. But thank goodness the FBI was on it and uncovered it in time and shut that whole plot down. But that was just another actual real threat. Now, what's interesting is, with all of that said, we've actually yet to see Iran pull the trigger on Unit 910 here in the US. They have been activated in Thailand and Bulgaria, but we can imagine that with everything that has just gone on, these 910 guys are probably on their own heightened level of awareness and operation, just sharpening their knives, for lack of a better phrase, and maybe updating their target lists. So by now, you guys should realize, I always lay that out, and then I go into, okay, so what can we do in regards to all this? Well, first and foremost, simply by staying vigilant. I have said before that your home is your castle, and God help the person that chooses to break into your house. You have all the advantage, because who knows your house better than you? It should be no one, right? Well, the same thing holds true for your neighborhood. Have the talks with your neighbors or your group. Be alert for behaviors or situations that seem out of place, especially when they involve things like unattended packages or vehicles, especially if they're in some sort of sensitive area. People just loitering near critical infrastructure or bridges, schools, government buildings, any type of unusual surveillance. And I'm talking people taking photos of things that aren't normal, like if they're taking photos of security cameras or entrances, things that won't really make good pictures. So why would you want them? And also things like strange chemical smells coming from a house, excessive wiring into a house, or odd modifications to homes or vehicles. And also just keep your ears and your eyes open for individuals expressing any sort of extremist views or discussing plans to harm others. And I would say most importantly, trust your instincts. The people watching a channel like this are already into preparedness and communications and all that stuff. So you're already ahead of the curve. As always, the intent of this channel is just to give motivation and additional information that you can hopefully use somewhere down the line. But yeah, if something feels off, it probably is. Don't second guess your gut. Just report whatever it is you're seeing. Even small details can help law enforcement piece together a larger threat. Also, some personal safety habits you can do just because you never know, or because you suspect something. One really good thing that's always just a good habit to get into is to vary your routines and your routes just to avoid predictability if anybody is watching you or surveilling you or anything like that. Also a big thing, keep your homes well lit. Bad guys like darkness. They like working in the shadows. If your house is all lit up and they can't approach it or get near it without being in the light, it doesn't bode well for their confidence. And also be really cautious with social media. You definitely want to avoid sharing sensitive personal or location details. Also, I can't emphasize it enough, seek out quality training. You can always hit us up at info@ranchstrategies.com and we can give you all the information on any tech med or rescue or firearms or even communications training that you would want to get into just for yourself if you're trying to get into an open enrollment course, or even to set up something private for your personal group. Also, keep your comms gear operational and conduct training amongst yourself or yourselves if you have that comms group established, just so that it runs smoothly if you have to put it into practice. Again, my focus is on that primary comms ability using simplex, analog or digital, instituting some sort of privacy protocols or encryption, which can be basic or enhanced. And you just want to be able to have those methods be utilized in a moment's notice. Also, get quality medical gear. Go on over to medicineandbadplaces.com. And before you do that, again, always email us. We'll hook you up with the discount code so you can get a percentage off of your order. And speaking of med gear, if you have to patrol any vehicle, carrying your med pouch on the small of your back absolutely sucks. Our BRAC, which is our belt rapid attachment kit, solves this mounting problem. What we did was, whatever med kit you want to use, we didn't want you have you buy something, some sort of proprietary pouch. Use the one that you're using. This mounting plate has just MOLLE on one side and then it's magnetic on the other side. So whatever med pouch it is that you're already using, just MOLLE it to this. Where this comes into its genius is the fact that the small of your back is just this thin little metal bar that mounts via Velcro. You can put this on your passenger seat. We also make a headrest mount for this. You can have it right on your passenger seat headrest. Just magnetize it to it. You jump out to do something, you pull it off, you go ahead, flip it onto your back, and off you go. So it really solves that mounting issue of, I want to have an IFAC on me, I want to wear it in the small of my back, but the size of it, due to being in a vehicle and trying to sit on it the entire time, just inhibits that ability. This fixes that problem. If you are interested in these are $120. Just go ahead and send me an email, taylor@ranchstrategies.com. We can get you hooked up with one of these. They come in two colors. They're either in green or black. Also, don't forget, we have our hats, our shirts, our hoodies, all that good stuff. Guys, I respond to virtually every comment that is sent. I love getting your thoughts and some of the follow-up discussions that take place and the ideas on all of these things that are going on. So please do that. It also helps with the YouTube algorithm to get this channel out there. So the saga that is 2025 continues. We'll see you on the next one. Be safe.